Hello? How are you feeling, David?
I'm doing well today.
Where's that mic button, right?
Yes, indeed. I'm at that point, but I know it's somewhere.
Okay, well, it was, and thank you for entertaining me. I've been having a terrible day up until now.
I heard about that. I'm sorry.
Well, you didn't hear you heard that I had a terrible day. You didn't hear the specifics.
Oh, yeah. It's
I'm about to share will you help me learn how to work my mouth?
I'm in the same process. I'll give you any tips that come my way.
Oh, geez. And Dave Michaels, you're there too, right? He's got that button where you push and he can talk too. Yeah, it's there somewhere, you know.
It's Mike.
Maybe. Here, Dave will turn it on here. So, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, okay. Now, is your mic on, Dave Michaels?
Not yet.
Oh. We need Richard B. Luther II, our esteemed station engineer, who has fled to the scene, from his hutch.
All right, now I'm here, MZ. Sorry about that.
Well, wait a minute. There's no light. So, I'm happy that the mic is on,
right.
But the indicator light there's another thing that we need to deal with.
Yeah, we'll get that fixed.
The whole place is falling
we'll
apart.
Get
what
that
are we going to
fixed
do?
During lunch.
Okay, good. So, here is the deal. Here is why I don't think this has ever happened to anybody yet.
Okay.
Dave Michaels.
Yes, sir.
Remember I presented you with a bacon croissant sandwich either last week or the week before?
Yes.
From Burger King.
Right.
Well, I had a hankering for a croissant sandwich today, again.
Okay.
And I used their app. And they have all kinds of deals on their app, like McDonald's and all the other people. People who have an opportunity to use apps and don't are missing the boat.
Right, you're really missing out.
Yeah, because there's some incredible deals. There were 2 croissant sandwiches. A croissant sandwich is like $3.95 or $3.75 or something like that, right? But with this deal and the app, you get 2 croissant sandwiches, either sausage or bacon or mix and match, right? Mm-hmm. And 2 coffees and 2 hash browns.
Wow.
Not a hell of a deal for $5.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Okay. So I did that. I looked at the watch. I didn't have to be here to meet our guest until 9:45.
Okay.
Right? And it was only 9:15. So I said, I got time.
Plenty of time.
To go and do what I want to do.
Yeah.
Right? Everything was just great. I was having a wonderful day. And I went to Burger King, 41st Avenue, and got my croissant sandwiches, put the order in. Mm-hmm. You have to order it on the app, and then they give you a special code that you show to the person or tell the person behind the cash register.
Right.
And it came right up. Everything was going great. Now, David, I don't, you haven't registered enough. I mean, you will, because you're talking, you're doing the weather and the traffic and everything better and better, more and more like a pro every time.
I'm learning from the best.
Okay, but as of right now, this minute, I had forgotten about you.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's just a nothing thing. It's just a truth thing.
All right.
Okay? But that'll change with time for sure. I was thinking of Dave Michaels.
Yes, sir.
Just like last time, I wanted to bring you the second croissant sandwich.
Yeah.
It was much too much for me.
Right.
And I ate the first one. I drank the coffee.
Okay.
I ate the first hash brown.
Right on.
And there was a mess all over the table. So I put the mess into the bag and threw the bag away, came to the radio station, and what do you think happened?
Your wallet was in the bag.
No.
Oh.
No.
What?
Your croissant sandwich and your hash browns were in the bag that got thrown away. What kind of an idiot does that? Totally destroyed my day, and now that I've told you, it's probably destroyed your day too.
No, I'll just go dig them out of the trash. It's problem solved, MZ.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you actually do that, that'll be. It's worth it because it was a delicious sandwich.
Okay.
Last time I gave you the bacon one because I got one of each.
Yeah.
I didn't ask, but I figured you probably like sausage.
Yeah.
So there were
absolutely.
two sausages. One is in my gut as we speak.
I don't
and
want
the
that
other and the other you don't want that one. The other one is in the trash, which you are seriously considering to go and retrieve.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what, MZ? I should get out to the Dave Cave because we just got our shipment in, and I know a lot of people have been waiting to get their hands on the Ultimate Daily Classic, which helps promote healthy blood pressure. Healthy blood pressure and eye health as well. Speaking of eyes, we also have Occutive, too. That's something that we haven't had for a couple of months. So, yeah, now's the time to get down there. I'm going to be out there all week next week as well, but it's first come, first served. So I would not wait until next week if I was you. If you want to get your hands on that stuff, you need to get out there now. That includes the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack.
We are so plentifully stocked at the moment.
At the moment, we are. We have plenty of the Healthy Brain and Heart Pack has been very popular lately. The Healthy Bone and Joint Pack. We have the Digestion Pack. We don't have the blood sugar pack yet. We're waiting for the Sweeties, which is on back order. It's supposed to be shipped out Monday. But everything else we have, Arthrodex, Colloidal Silver, whatever it is, we have it. Collagen peptides.
Do you think
there.
the reason that we don't have some of it has to do with this supply chain thing? Or do you think just people are just ordering crazily from you?
I think the supply chain somehow is affecting things. Whatever the reason, though. But we should have some more Sweet E's on Monday. So if that's what you're looking for, you might want to wait till Monday. But other than that, you want the Brain and Heart Pack, the Bone and Joint Pack, the Digestion Pack. We even have ASAP, which is the weight loss formula. Just it's going on today, MC. I'll be out there till 2 o'clock today.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah, and guess what? Speaking of there's Doc Wallach and there's Pharmacist Ben, who talk about longevity, with George Norrie.
Right.
I got a reminder in the email that Pharmacist Ben is going to be on with George this coming Tuesday.
Oh, good.
Which is November 9th.
Good.
Which is the big 7-0 for me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh.
Isn't that cool?
Good,
Happy
yeah.
birthday.
We have to celebrate somehow.
Yeah.
But I haven't made it yet. I mean, once I make it, we can celebrate.
Yeah, you don't want to count your chickens before they're hatched, right?
Okay.
All right, MZ. I'll see you out there.
Yeah, thank you. So let's start the program officially.
Good morning, a brighter day is here. Good morning, may we bring you cheer.
We've got time, we've got tunes, we've got time, tunes, and temperature.
Get up and go, it's today you know on KSCO Radio.
I will never, ever, ever, ever do that again. Throw away a perfectly good, delicious breakfast. What got into me? Too many things on my mind. All right, welcome to the Saturday special for the, what the hell day is it? It says June 11th on the clock. That can't be right. It's November 6th. Or is it? Yeah.
Good morning, now stay right here on KSCO Radio.
What kind of a radio station has a main studio clock that's like 5 months off?
Well, one that is coming up to date with the times. But we are getting there. We are getting there. We're
Okay.
entering the space age as we speak.
All right, well, then let's do this here. David, may I ask you a personal question?
Certainly.
Were you born? I mean, not
Yes,
were
I
you
was.
born. When were you born?
I was born in 1963.
And where were you born?
Santa Monica, California.
So you're not a Santa Cruz. However, but you say 1963?
That's correct.
Do you remember? And you probably would remember because it was we were all over the national news as Santa Cruz, which had been characterized as the murder capital of the world. Do you remember that, or are you too young?
I was not allowed to watch the news until after the Vietnam War ended. So I didn't catch up with anything that was happening nationally.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, it's probably okay. So we're going to catch you up on things that you weren't allowed to
All right.
watch
I'm interested.
There is a fabulous book that's the heaviest book I've ever felt for the size, and it's called Murder Capital of the World. The Santa Cruz community looks back at the Frazier, Mullen, and Kemper murder sprees of the early 1970s, with the author Emerson Murray. Hi, Emerson.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
What an honor to be.
It's quite an interest.
What an honor to have you, the author. And you're like 10 years younger than David.
Yeah.
But so when this happened, you were just a blah.
Yep. Mullen was apprehended 10 days after I was born. Yeah.
Wow. So I've met people who have extraordinary memories where they can remember back to maybe 2 or 3 years old, but I've never met anybody who could have that much of a memory like.
Not at all. No, for us, my dad was friends with one of Herbert Mullen's victims, a man named Jim Gennara, and so he always had a picture on the wall of him and Jim hiking, and so we just grew up knowing what had happened to Jim.
Ugh.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds sort of morbid, but it was just something we talked about. And as you know, in Santa Cruz, it's hard to escape. If you go to Safeway or Nob Hill or even Burger King, and a lot of people are young there, and you see people of a certain age, you could bring up these crimes, and somebody will have some sort of relationship to a victim or to the killers or something. I mean, it's just something that was just a thread through our community.
Well, I was in 1973. I guess the first one happened in 71.
In 70, October 70.
Okay, yeah, with Dr. Ota's murder with him and most of his family.
Yeah.
By John Linley Frazier.
Yeah.
And I remember that they also called him, he had an alias of John Linley Pascal. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right, because that was his mother's maiden name.
Okay.
She ran a bunny farm. I think it was called Bunny Haven or something.
Yeah.
And she was sort of known in the area for raising bunnies. And you think, oh, that's so cute, this bunny farm.
Okay, I thought you meant Playboy bunnies.
No,
not
at all. Not at all.
All right.
And so I found one newspaper article where it's very cute, and you know, she raises bunnies, and they're 4-H and the county fair and all this stuff. And then down below, she gives a recipe for bunny stew.
Bunny stew?
Yeah, it's something like that. Yeah, bunny stew or bunny. Yeah, so it's not all
maybe
cutesy,
John
cutesy.
Maybe John learned some of that kind of stuff from his mom.
That was her quote in the trial, was that John couldn't even kill a rabbit. So she thought he was innocent because he couldn't kill a rabbit as a child.
Whoa.
Yeah.
You were telling me in the office here a little bit before we went on that John Linley Frazier, the murderer of Dr. Ota and his family, is no longer with us because he took his life. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it was 2014, maybe 2009. I can't remember, but he was housed. I can't remember if it was Mule Creek or where he was moved, because he got moved around twice, and I can't remember the final location. But yeah, he committed suicide in his cell. Yeah.
It's sort of hard to do, huh?
I would imagine.
Yeah. So he must have been pretty clever.
And he must have been, pretty determined, right? Yeah.
Wow.
I talked to Lark Ota, who was one of the surviving daughters, and her speculation, because of course all the newspapers called her and wanted her input, her speculation was that he had lived in a cell for so long, so many years, and they had just moved to him. And I thought, that could be something to that, where you have to, I imagine in prison, I've never been, but you have to start all over in the pecking order and change everything about your life. So I thought that was a pretty good idea.
Well, in 1970, I was not in the media yet, but in 1973, I was.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, there was a cable TV service called Teleprompter. And I worked for Teleprompter, and my job, it was the greatest job in the world. I would still be doing it today for minimum wage, probably, because I love the job so much. And here it is. What was it, 1973? So that's like 75.
Almost 50 years ago. Yeah,
almost 50 years ago, yeah. Wow. But I got laid off. and I was in charge of producing and hosting a 30-minute nightly news feature program.
Wait, that was your entry job? Like that's how you started?
Well, I had already been like the manager of the
Gotcha.
UCSC, student radio station,
gotcha.
stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, it was probably the second paid job that I had in media. And as I said, I mean, it was just a dream job, and the only reason I stopped doing it, not because I didn't do a good job. In fact, the boss used to literally pat me on the back and say, "Attaboy, I'm so happy that to have you in the organization." And then one day, out of the blue, he called me and he says, "You better sit down for this." I said, "Okay, what's up?" He said, "I got to let you go." I said,
Wow.
"What? I mean, like almost every day you tell me what a good job I do. It doesn't make any sense." He says, "It's not my decision. Believe me, it was a decision made at corporate in New York City, which was where the corporate headquarters for Teleprompter was. And we have to do cutbacks, company-wide cutbacks in the local origination." They called it local origination then. They didn't call it local TV station because it was only viewable on the cable. If you had to be a subscriber to the cable system. And at that time, believe it or not, the Santa Cruz cable TV system, owned by Teleprompter, major, cable corporation, was the largest in terms of total subscribers in the whole nation.
Wow.
And the reason is because in order to get anything out of San Francisco, or you'd only get channel 8 or channel 11 if you had rabbit ears.
Right, I remember. Yeah.
And so if you wanted to get more, and they certainly didn't have a million cable channels like they do now. They might have had 3 or 4 or 6 others, channel 9, channel 3, channel 4.
Well,
Channel
whatever
5.
fit on the dial, right?
Yeah, right. And so, but back then, as a requirement for the local government to give you this, license to print money, almost cable TV franchise, you had to do community-oriented programming. Sometimes they called it public access, but here they called it cable TV channel 7. And if anybody wants to see what I look like and sounded like, I sound pretty much the same, I think. But back in 1973, I was in charge of producing and hosting a 30-minute nightly news feature program from 5:30 to 6 every evening, and then repeated at 9:30 to 10, via recording. And it was the dream job. I mean, I got paid for going out and having fun, interviewing the drunk at the Capitola Wharf. Some of these things I posted on YouTube years ago on my YouTube channel, which didn't really grow into anything. I haven't put much effort into it, but if you want to see any of this stuff, ZBS Boss, ZBSBOSS is the YouTube channel, and you can see some of this stuff. But back then, that was in the thick of the 1973 Mullen and Kemper stuff, right?
Yeah.
And so I was a member of the media.
Yeah, wow.
Then, and so I was reporting on these
that stuff.
Yeah. And it came even closer to home than that, because 1 year earlier, I had graduated from College 5 at UC Santa Cruz. That's what it was called back when I was going to school. They hadn't been endowed sufficiently to receive the current name, which is Porter College now. But the lady, the very tall, very nice lady who would sign my parking passes when I went in to get a parking pass, was Clarinell Strandberg.
Wow.
And you know that name.
Yeah.
That is Edmund Kemper's mother.
Yeah.
And is it true that she was his last victim?
Second to last, yeah. He also killed her friend, who also worked at UCSC, Sarah Hallett, who worked up there, yeah. And she also got Kemper a parking permit. Kemper, as you know, killed a couple of UCSC students, and he would go on and off campus. And the reason being is because his mother got him a parking permit. I mean, it got to the point where the local law enforcement and UCSC administration were telling females, stop hitchhiking. But if you do have to hitchhike, here's a list of what to look out for. You want to ride with a couple, you want to do this. And one of the items on there was make sure they have a UCSC parking permit on their car, a sticker. And if sickly enough.
See, I didn't get a
had
sticker.
one.
I got like guest parking permit.
Oh,
and
right,
these little
yeah.
yellow handwritten things. So nothing I could stick on the car.
Yeah.
Wow. She got her murderer son. She obviously didn't know it, but a stick on, like A, B, or C pass or something.
Yeah, and there's a picture in the book of his what he called his murder car, and there's the sticker right on front. The A permit.
Wow.
Yeah.
So why do you think all this happened in Santa Cruz? So that it got that moniker.
I mean, it's pure speculation, but you got to think of the times, and we're on the heels of the Manson crimes, 1968, 69.
Yeah.
The Zodiac killers running around, and he had published letters saying, "Oh, I'm going to ambush a school bus and pick off the little kiddies as they come bouncing out."
Chowchilla, right?
Yeah, so local law enforcement is following around school buses out of fear. And then we had big changes in society here with the Vietnam War, which we talked about earlier a little bit, and changes in welfare laws where you didn't need to work or didn't need to live where you get your check, so a lot of people came here. We had those damn hippies moving in to Ben Lomond and some of the other areas, rural areas, Boulder Creek, and the UCSC opened. So it was just big changes going on in society as well. Even the Board of Supervisors did a study on, or they paid for a study to be done on what they called the Ute movement, which was undesirable transient element.
Really?
Yeah, and so
Wow, I
they
don't
paid
remember
this
that.
company, I think the company's from Los Gatos, $15,000 to come in and say, who are these undesirable transient elements? Who are these people? And the study came back and it said a couple of things that were interesting. One was Santa Cruz was unique as a county in California. We had a large population of elderly citizens and a large population of youth, but we didn't have a lot of middle-aged people at that time. And this separation sort of was causing a lot of rifts in culture. And as the youth is saying,
I remember they called it a generation gap.
Yeah, generation gap.
Yeah.
That's perfect. Yeah. And so that's what one thing the study showed. The study also showed, hey, this undesirable transient element, it's mostly surfers, and it's young people that come, hang out in Santa Cruz and move on. And sure, they might smoke a little pot, but the hard drugs that are being dealt by, and I think this is a quote, people that look more like businessmen. It's not this undesirable transient element. And the third thing that I found really interesting was the report said a lot of these hippies and this wild youth, they're your kids, they're locals, they're not from outside the area, they're us. And so that didn't go over too well with the Board of Supervisors, and the company said, "Hey, we can do a further study for $50,000."
I'd say you've done enough. Is
Yeah,
probably
exactly.
What they said, right?
They ran them out of there. They said no thanks. So consequently, which was sort of funny, a man named Pat Lickey, who was
I
from
remember
Boulder Creek,
him.
They called him the hippie mayor, and he wasn't really a hippie, but he took a hold of this idea of a Ute and started what he called Ute Enterprises. And my parents still have handbags that say undesirable transient element and posters and T-shirts.
Oh, I got to get one of them.
I said, Ute, I'm a Ute, proud to be a Ute, things like that. And so he turned it into this positive, sort of snarky thing. And Pat ended up being, becoming a supervisor.
Himself,
Yeah, he didn't last very long, but
a total character. Whatever happened to him? Did he move to heaven?
He moved to heaven eventually. Yeah, he got in some trouble, if I recall, because our families were friends. I was friends with his sons. He was protesting something and threw blood on. I think he got naked and threw blood on himself on the steps of the Capitol. He got in trouble there. And then I don't know if you remember in the early 1980s, Safeway Bingo, when that started, the first Safeway Bingo game.
No,
After he had protested in Scotts Valley to the Safeway coming in there to Scotts Valley, He ended up winning the Safeway bingo contest. And he got $1,000 a month for the rest of his life. And the last time I talked to him, which was probably in the mid to late 80s, I was a teenager, he said that they had tried to buy him out several times, and he was still getting that $1,000 a month check from Safeway.
Wow.
Isn't that unbelievable?
What a wonderful story.
Yeah, yeah, he was a character. He was a really neat guy. Yeah.
Well, that's what I like most about KSCO. Our city of license is Santa Cruz, California, a place where there are more characters per square inch than probably any place on the planet.
I agree with that. That's fantastic.
And so what a great place to have a station, that showcases these characters, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So,
and there's a lot in the book. We were talking earlier about Jim Jackson. Jim Jackson was the public defender at the time, and he defended all three of, Mullen, Kemper, and Frazier.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he defended all three of them.
I had gotten to know Jim like 3 years earlier than that, and you'd think I would know what you are just telling me now, but I didn't. This is new information.
Yeah, he defended all three of them. I mean, in some cases, my personal feelings are that Mullen was insane. Maybe not by the Manhattan standard, but he was insane, and I don't know that he belonged in a prison rather than a hospital. But the other two, I mean, all of them were found guilty either way. But Jim Jackson is just such a neat man. He's such a great character, such an original thinker, and I only met him 2 or 3 times, talked to him, but the first time was extensively for a long time for the book. He's quoted throughout the book. And just what an original person, original thinker. It was so, I don't think he realizes how funny he is and how interesting he is. Yeah.
I've got to reconnect with Jim. His wife, I believe it's just his wife, Cameron Jackson, is a big fan, a special friend of KSCO's.
Oh, neat.
Yeah. And we get emails and content contributions.
Yeah.
Occasional phone calls, I think, from Cameron
Neat.
now and then. But yeah, Jim is a total character, and I need to reconnect with him.
Yeah.
He was part of, what was the name of the some sort of a conspiracy thing that we did as students at UC Santa Cruz in 1970. That quarter, they were on the quarter system then, and I was a student.
They still are, yeah.
Okay. And in the spring quarter of 1970, it was there was the Cambodian incursion, part of the Vietnam War, and there were so many student protests countrywide, including and especially UCSC, that the classes essentially shut down everywhere, and I decided that I was going to go to Washington and protest, but. And I did that, and then when I came back, because there were no classes to attend, but they had started some sort of a video production called A Matter of Conspiracy, I think it was. And Jim Jackson, the attorney, who was the public defender, I guess then, I'm not sure he was, but he obviously was 3 years later during the, Kemper and Mullen thing. He was part of that, as were a couple of other local attorneys.
Neat.
And we just did it was a mock trial, is what it was, for people who, I can't remember. Just never mind. So there are so many, this book that I need to, I'm not a very avid reader. I mean, I don't know whether I'm dyslexic or what, but I'm very excited about thumbing through this.
Yeah, you can flip through it, and see the quotes and jump around. I mean, it jumps around if you want, and pick up at any spot, because it's a pretty fascinating read.
Okay, well, I knew Peter Chang, who was the district attorney back then. We used to interview him on teleprompter all the time.
He's all over the book. Recently, there's some videos out with his voice, and he has such a distinct, interesting voice.
Doug James, I got my press pass from him when he was the sheriff.
Yeah.
Every
You're going to know everyone in there, yeah.
God, just amazing. Anyhow, I'm a horrible host because I should have repeated your name half a dozen times since the program started. But we are talking. Our guest today is Emerson Murray, a Santa Cruz born and raised person who has written a book called Murder Capital of the World, and I am holding it in my hand. I think, my muscles are sagging because I'm getting old. But I think this is all I need. I don't need to buy dumbbells or anything. All I have to do is just lift this book a bunch of times, and I think my muscles might somewhat regenerate in my biceps or something. So, So how is it that you became fascinated enough?
Yeah, that's a great question. So
to dedicate. I mean, I can't imagine the time that went into.
Well, yeah,
researching and writing this book.
I tell people that I've been researching it for 30 years. I mean, it was always an interest. Like I said, we knew about my dad's friend Jim Gennaro, and I can remember, and I talk about it in the book, as a child, being at my grandmother's house, and she had saved the newspaper clippings from when the Odas and Dorothy Cadwallader were murdered by John Lindley Frazier, and looking at the Otis sisters, and I must have commented about one of them being cute or something, and my foster brother Jamal said, "Oh, you're going to marry them, and was teasing me, and Jamal lived with us when I was in kindergarten, so we were looking at newspaper clippings in kindergarten, and so it was just something I can remember being at parties, at a Halloween party at our family friend's house, and hearing the adults talking about these crimes. And so it was always something that was interesting to me, or just in the background there. And in the early 2000s, the BBC came out to Santa Cruz to work on a series they were doing called Born to Kill. And my sister-in-law was working at the sheriff's office at the time. She's a deputy, and she was working in the public information office. So she was the liaison between the sheriff's office and the BBC. So she would report back to us and sort of give us the inside scoop. Well, when the episodes came out, what they did was they separated them. So they had an episode on Frazier, an episode on Mullen, and an episode on Kemper. And that drove me nuts because they didn't cross them. They didn't talk about the impact of these crimes in our community and how Kemper and Mullen were killing at the same time. And all that was just missed completely. So that just really bothered me, and I got on the idea that we needed to do our own project, a book.
You weren't
an
author. You'd never written a book.
No.
What had you? What was your line of work?
At the time, I was working in the film industry. Actually, at that time, and was doing mostly lighting. So I had this idea, like we're going to do something, and then fast forward to 2019, my wife and I got word that Mickey Alufi, who was a deputy sheriff who investigated the Kemper crimes, was going to give a speech about Kemper. And so we went to that in Aptos, and as I looked around, everyone was in their 70s and 80s, that had lived through that time period and were involved in the crimes. And I thought, and you've talked about it, as memories start to fade and unfortunately people pass away, we're going to lose this primary source history. Everyone that lived through it isn't going to be here necessarily in 20 years. So I had, by that time, I had written a book before, a book called Bruiser Brody. It was a biography of a professional wrestler that was murdered in Puerto Rico. And so I thought, after I saw Mickey's talk, it was like the next Monday, I think I was sitting in my office and just looking out the window and saying, like, I have to do something. I have to. And that night I started making phone calls and just got my butt in gear and started working on the book in earnest.
And that year was 20...
That was 2019, yeah.
How long did it take you to do it?
Well, the book just came out in July of this year. My dad passed away in May, and we had his memorial on July 17th. So we had the release on that day, so it was July 17th. And I had 1,000 copies printed, did it all myself, did it in InDesign and the photographs, and put it all in together, collected the photographs. And it was 2 huge pallets of books shipped into the garage. It's 3,002 pounds, if you're curious how much 1,000 books weighs.
Wow.
And they're in there, and my kids helped me put it together.
It's only that, because this feels like 10 pounds.
Yeah, it's a heavy book. Yeah.
God.
If we go by weight, it's worth your money. Yeah. So, so my kids and I are slowly unpacking them and numbering them, hand numbering and signing each one, and we're shipping them out as the orders come in. We have about 300 copies left.
Oh, now how do people purchase this? You go to your website?
Well, thank you for asking. Yeah. So
come on. I mean, that's the whole.
Yeah. Murdercapitaloftheworld.com. That's capital with an A. Murdercapitaloftheworld.com, and we can ship a book right out to you. You can also go to downtown to Bookshop Santa Cruz. They're stocking them. And then Two Birds Book in Capitola on 41st Avenue, down near the end there, and by Taqueria Vallarta. And then the Postal Annex in Scotts Valley actually has them in stock there, and they've sold quite a few through there. So.
Well, so why isn't this available in every bookstore?
Well, because
It's a fascinating, just so what that it was about Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz got the name Murder Capital of the World.
Yeah.
Which is the title of your book. Yeah. Why this should be in every bookstore?
Well, yeah, and I think the second edition, maybe, or second printing, I should say, maybe. I learned how to create a Kindle on my own, so the Kindle is on Amazon, but they take such a large cut for selling books through Amazon that I thought we are selling fine. I've sold almost 700 copies. Just in these areas, and I'm getting orders all over the world through my website. That it's been fine so far, and I haven't needed to expand, but because I'm doing it all on my own, we'll see. It may expand. It just hasn't needed to so far.
Oh, great!
Yeah,
that's sort of wonderful. Okay, so it's not all that long ago that you went to work on this.
No.
Because you grew up knowing about it because of the connection with your dad and his friend who was murdered.
Yep, and I was collecting newspaper clippings, and like I said, I've been doing sort of research for 30 years and collecting every little scrap of information I could find, and I wasn't like obsessed with it. It was sort of in the background of everything else that was going on in my life. Oh, you'd find a clipping, I'd cut it out, or a friend or a family member, oh, here's a clipping about those killings, would send it my way and throw it in a box. And in 2019, when I started, I went and pulled that box, and there was all the newspaper articles I could need. And the strange thing is like we were talking about earlier, the community, this impacted our community so deeply, and it was so prevalent that people started coming out of the woodwork with giving me information. And, I know so-and-so, and we have a family friend named Bob Ludlow, and
I know Bob.
Yeah, he turned us on to Austin Comstock, who turned me on to Harold Cartwright, who turned me on to, so it was just this
Austin was part of the conspiracy thing that Jim Jackson was at UCSC with me and some other students.
And he was a big part of Peter Chang's election committee. So, it was just spider-webbed out with people and information to the point where my neighbors down the street said, oh, yeah, my husband who's passed away, he was a student intern in Jim Jackson's office. I have a stack of newspapers if you want them. And brought over all these newspapers from the time period. It's just everywhere in our community.
God, that's great. Let's see. We're at 45 minutes into the hour. And look, we already have a caller. Want to take a call?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we can go on all day without any calls at all. But I think Gordon in Los Banos is on and wants to talk to you. So, hey, Gordon, welcome to KSCO. You're on the air.
Thank you very much. I had one class at Jim Gennaro in high school, San Lorenzo Valley.
Yeah, at SLV.
In fact, I remember Jim. He kind of sat next to me. I didn't really know him that well, but it was a geometry class. I don't know why I remember that. Anyway, Jim Gennaro was an interesting guy. He talked all the time. He was a very gregarious guy. In fact, he was a good athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he held.
He wanted to play in the football team. He wanted to play in the football team, I remember, but he hated the football coach. So he never played. But anyway, he was a very extroverted, and I knew Herbert Mullins a little bit. I didn't know him that well, but he was a quiet guy. He didn't talk very much. And Jim Gennaro was very talkative.
Well, wait a minute. Was Herbert, I should remember this, but was Herbert Mullen a local?
Yeah, he's a local boy, graduated from SLV in 65.
Oh, yeah, he graduated in 65 like Jim Gennaro. I graduated in 66. But I didn't really know him that well. I had one class. But
And did you know,
Jim Gennaro was kind of funny.
I have a question, Gordon. Did you know Dean Richardson?
Yes, I did. He was killed on
the
graduation night.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently he was a friend of Herbert Mullins, and Mullins was all upset about that.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of what
was crazy.
set him on, what set Mullen off, yeah.
God.
But I heard Jim Gennaro talked about everything. He wasn't really he was
Chilling
funny.
stuff. Gordon, when did you move?
I think I recall him saying that I'm gonna sell marijuana, get into marijuana after high school.
And he did.
Yeah. And he did, I guess.
Yeah.
I didn't really know much after that, but anyway, very interesting. I'll have to get this book.
Yeah, for sure.
Gordon, how you live in Los Banos?
Well, actually, I live in Gusty, but
Oh.
no one knows what that is.
Okay.
I live on the south.
when did you stop being a Santa Cruzan and why?
Well, I went in the Army, so I got drafted. Typical. And then when I came back, I lived in San Jose, and then I moved out here after I got divorced. Different situations.
Yeah.
Cheap housing out here. The reason I came out here is cheap housing. Very inexpensive.
Yeah. Great. Okay. Well, thank you.
I would have liked to live. I wanted to. My parents were from Mount Hermon. I wanted to live there, but it was too expensive. So
Yeah, wow.
I couldn't buy a house there. But anyway, Jim Gennaro was very interesting. He was very savvy. I heard about it.
Yeah, I understand he was sort of a tough guy. He was a part of the Deacons gang, which was something he had brought from San Francisco.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't know if you remember that.
He was actually a pretty good athlete. The football coach wanted him to play, but he wouldn't play because he didn't like the coach. So
Funny.
it was kind of funny.
Not to get grisly here, guys, but what are the circumstances of Jim's demise?
Yeah, so Jim did become a drug dealer, and he was an effective drug dealer. He had a partner, and he had sold or given Herb plenty of drugs, a lot of acid, LSD, and they stayed in touch after high school, obviously. But he didn't give Herb what Herb thought he needed, which was Benzedrine. And so, according to his interviews, Herbert Mullen, he primarily killed people because he thought that by doing this, the Aztecs were correct, and that only through human sacrifice could we prevent natural disasters. And so as the Vietnam War is winding down, he needs to up the body count in order to appease nature, the gods, whatever, and stop earthquakes and stop California from sliding into the ocean. Well, with Jim Gennaro, it was a little different. He was angry at Jim Gennaro for not giving him Benzedrine. So he thought, oh, well, this will fit into my plan. Normally he heard voices in his head of his parents or of other people saying, hey, you need to go kill someone. It's time to kill someone. But with Jim Gennaro, he didn't. He was after Jim. And unfortunately, Jim had lived up by the Mystery Spot, in a house up by the Mystery Spot. So he went up there. A woman named Kathy Francis answered the door, and she said, nope, Jim no longer works here. Well, she had met Herb before and told him where Jim lived, which is out on Western Drive. The house is still there. It's a neat-looking house. But so she was there with her two young boys. Her husband was sort of a dealer with her, or with Jim.
Jim, yeah.
Yeah, and so Mullen leaves. He goes to Western Drive, and he kills Jim Gennaro. He shoots him, and his wife, who was there, Joan, and shoots her. Fortunately, their baby daughter was at her grandparents' house. And then he thinks, oh, well, Kathy Francis, too, who just told me where Jim lives. I better go back and finish the job. And so he went to her house, and he says that, in her head, she said, oh, yeah, I think we would be good sacrifices. And he kills her, and he killed her two young boys, which, it's terrible. All that in one day. And of course, that was in the territory, or the territory is the wrong word, but under the jurisdiction of the Santa Cruz Sheriff's Office, and then the generic killing was under the police department. So it took a little while for them to sort of make the connection, but only within a few hours, because the district attorney's office at the time was very involved in crime scenes. They always had somebody put on set, and so at the crime scene. So they were going back and forth, and the connection was made pretty quickly that her husband, I forgot his name, something Francis, was connected to Jim Gennara, and so they were after drug dealers. They were looking for drug dealers and thinking this was some kind of drug thing gone wrong. People forget that. They think that this tidal wave happened, but it took a long time. You know, the first of Kemper's victims were were killed outside of our area, and things like. And Mullen's first victim was a homeless gentleman along Highway 9. So it took a while before law enforcement realized, wow, we have a murder problem on our hand here locally. Before there was no term serial killer at the time, but and then it just progressed from there with the UCSC killings and
wow,
yeah.
This is chilling stuff. Hey, Gordon, thanks for calling 479-1080, and we'll open the phone lines to anybody who wants to call in and ask our guest Emerson Murray a question or relate a story about Santa Cruz becoming the murder capital of the world.
Yeah.
And I haven't heard that name be given to any other place since we received that dubious distinction or dubious honor. So I guess we're still considered the murder capital of the world.
Yeah, I don't know. We got the title after there were 4 young teenage boys that were camping in an area of Henry Cowell. It was not open to visitors. And Herbert Mullen, they had sort of like a tent system almost there, almost like yurts. And Herbert Mullen went there, and he heard voices in his head, and the boys were making pancakes, and in his head he heard, oh, you should probably kill us for sacrifices. And he said, okay, fine. So he killed all four boys with a pistol. And the next day or later that day, Peter Chang, our district attorney, was preparing for a press conference, and he was sort of bantering with a reporter from the San Francisco Examiner. And the reporter said something along the lines of, so Santa Cruz must be the murder capital of the world.
So the name stuck.
And Peter Chang said, yeah, we must be the murder capital. Wow. And yeah, Pat Lickey and other supervisor members, they couldn't stand it. They hated that title. Where they wanted the tourist dollars, and they didn't want the tourists to be scared away by something like that, a title like that. So, sort of interesting.
Oh my gosh! So let's talk about. It seems to me that what do you call it? Not verdicts, but pleas. Mm-hmm. What do you plea? Well, innocent or guilty. Yeah. I remember there used to be a two-pronged plea called guilty and guilty by reason of insanity.
Right.
Okay? I don't know what came first, innocent by reason of insanity.
Yeah.
Can you explain that whole thing to me?
I don't understand it either. Yeah. Perhaps one of the callers does, but I don't understand exactly what the nuances of all those pleas were. It's interesting to sort of follow the track. Like when Kemper was arrested, he was arrested out in Pueblo, Colorado. He killed his mother and her friend and fled. And they interviewed him out there. Mickey Alufi and others traveled out there. Dick Verbrugge, who was who was an investigator for the prosecutor's office, for the district attorney. They interviewed him out there, and Kemper told a very concise story. He remembered every detail down to the socks people were wearing, his victims, and he told the story there. Well, as he comes back to Santa Cruz, the story starts to change. And as he and Jim Jackson plead an insanity defense, his story starts to change even more.
Was it back? Were they saying guilty, but guilty by reason of insanity?
Honestly, I can't remember. It's in the book,
okay.
But I just can't remember off the top of my head exactly what the plea was. But you can see Kemper's story start to change as that comes out, and things get more grisly, and cannibalism comes into play, and necrophilia comes into play, and he starts to change his stories. And then later, after he's prosecuted and found guilty, his story starts to change even more. And then if you read transcripts of his parole hearings, the stories start to change even more. So I did the book as a series of quotes. So it's all from his mouth, what his story. So sometimes you'll hear the same story a couple times, but it'll be slightly different.
You say that there are plenty of YouTube videos with Kemper being interviewed, but that you weren't able to, or maybe you didn't try, or maybe you didn't feel like you needed to. I think that's what you said.
Well, I reached out to him once, and then I wrote him a letter, and then I had heard word that he had had a stroke and also had gone mostly blind. So I wrote the same letter again with a huge font size, just because that's what I heard to do. And he never responded to either of the letters. So I thought, I have so much material between his pleas and the interviews he did with the defense, his defense team, and the interviews he has done on YouTube, and like, he has just told the same stories over and over. And I also had material from his sisters. I had material from his friends at the time. And he actually had a fiancée. I had material from his fiancée. So I just didn't feel like I needed his input. I had a lot of his input.
Yeah,
you know, I just
like it.
didn't know what he would add now at this stage to the conversation.
I see. Well, so you didn't. How old is Kemper now?
I can't remember exactly. I think he's in his 73 or something.
That sounds about right. I
Yeah.
think he was a little older than me, 3 or 4 years, or something like that.
Yeah, he was fairly young. Yeah.
Well, we're approaching the end of hour number 1 of our Murder Capital of the World author interview. And if you want to call next hour, you certainly have an opportunity to. You can certainly participate via email, mz@ksco.com. And there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to be thumbing through the books during the break here. And it's just a fascinating thing. So many of the members of our audience, I'm sure, lived through this. And have their own recollections and their own stories to relate, and so forth. So David, is my clock correct in here? It's 10:59 and 15 seconds.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. So yeah, if the date is wrong, at least the seconds are correct. So, oh jeez. All right, so there is another hour ahead. And just fascinating topic. So many people got killed here, and I mean, why am I so fascinated by this?
A lot of people are. Yeah.
So I shouldn't feel abnormal.
I don't think so.
Okay, good, because
But perhaps I'm abnormal. So
well,
peas in a pod.
Yeah. All right. So
San Jose. Most of the roads are clear with only a few minutes slowdown, but if you are taking the 880 between 680 and Milpitas, there looks like some construction going on there, so you'll have a little bit of a slowdown, but it's only showing us 3 to 5 minutes delay. On Highway 101, south of San Jose, it is running near or at time until you get southbound all the way down to King City. If you're heading north, just that incident around Prunedale. Heading south from Santa Cruz, Highway 1 is clear, down to Capitola, down to Moss Landing, into Seaside, Carmel by the Sea. There's a little bit of backup there by Point Lobos in the Carmel Highlands and south of Garapata State Park. Taking a look at the forecast for today, mostly sunny with a high near 63 degrees, light and variable winds becoming northwest 10 to 15 miles per hour in the morning. Winds could gust as high as 20 miles per hour. Partly cloudy tonight with a low around 49. Winds 9 to 14 miles per hour. Sunday, high near 61. North winds 9 to 16 miles per hour with gusts as high as 21 miles per hour. On the seas, we are looking at northwest winds at 5 knots becoming 15 to 20 knots with gusts up to 30 knots this afternoon. Wind waves at 1 foot. Increasing 3 to 5 feet this afternoon with swells 4 to 6 feet at 12 seconds. And now we are going to go on to the second hour of the Saturday special with MZ.
So, David, you say it's coming back to you. Oh, wait a minute. Are you playing that?
That was coming in, yes.
Okay, you
Stop
could,
it.
yeah, stop that because I can play it from in here.
Sure.
But so you say this is starting to come back to you now.
Starting
even
to
though you
refresh, yeah, the infamous Santa Cruz stories.
Yeah,
yes,
even
the dark
though
side.
even though you were like 10 years old, but you were on the other side of the country. You weren't living it here
Correct.
in Santa Cruz. Okay, good. So it is coming back now. Dave Michaels. Okay. How's it going in the Dave Cave?
Things are a little slow this morning, MZ, but that's good news for anybody who wants to stop by and get their paws on some Arthrodex for their four-legged friends. We have plenty of that. It is absolutely essential, MZ. A lot of people forget that our pets also need vitamins and minerals.
Because they can't talk. Most of them can't talk.
Yes, because they can't talk.
Some of them can talk.
Yeah, I mean, if you buy enough, maybe they will start talking. You never know.
I saw a YouTube channel where some dog sang "Twinkle Twinkle Little Star" or something.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah,
That is super cute.
So it's not. I mean, so not all of them can't talk.
No. Well, people love their pets, MZ. They just forget that it's super easy to make sure that your pet stays healthy by picking up a can of Arthrodex. $35 buys a 1-pound canister, and if it's for your cat, that thing's going to last 2 months. Forget it. Your cat's going to love it. And your cat's going to be much healthier and much more frisky. And your dog's going to be, much more happier. It's good stuff. Arthrodex for your four-legged friend is a great value. One of the best values in the gate.
And you did talk to somebody, I think, once who took Arthrodex as a human.
Yes, and he started, next time I saw him, he was a little bit hairier. And then the time after that, he had a tail. He had to cut a hole in his pants. Yeah. So it's up to you. I would recommend that you keep it for your pets, though, and take the BTT for yourself.
Oh, right.
So I'll be out there till 2.
Well, I can see at least one person waiting for you at the Dave Cave.
Yeah.
So stand by. We are going to enter officially hour number 2 of the Saturday special. Now I'm going to press the button.
Oh, hello, darling. I hate to hang up on you, but I'm sorry, baby, but I have to go. It's time for that wonderful record show. I'd love to visit, but you'll have to call back. KSCO has the inside track.
Yeah, we're talking about murders in Santa Cruz. Yeah, we have a lot to say about murders in Santa Cruz.
I'm sorry, baby, but I really gotta go to KSCO Radio. Bye.
And we are pleased to have as a guest in our studio the man who knows more about murders in Santa Cruz than any other human, I submit. And that would be Emerson Murray, who wrote a book called Murder Capital of the World. It was just published this year. The Santa Cruz community looks back at the Frazier, Mullen, and Kemper murder sprees of the early 1970s. You, yes, you, me? Yes, you. I'm talking about you. Have the ability to call 479-1080, that's area 831, and participate in the show. I think there are thousands of people who are listening to the program today who were alive and lived through these days in 1970 through 73. Mm-hmm. During which time Santa Cruz developed the dubious distinction of becoming known as the murder capital of the world. There's a great book. I swear it's like this. You get a twofer when you get this book. Not only do you get a riveting book to read, but you won't have to buy a dumbbell because it's so heavy that you can actually. You can exercise with a book. Right?
552 pages, yeah, glossy.
But they're like thick pages.
Yep.
Is this Donald Trump? Someone who
Probably
looks,
not. Yeah.
Someone who looks like Donald Trump. I just opened up.
Oh,
Anyhow,
yeah, that's Fred Harris.
Yeah, 479-1080, area 831, or mz@ksco.com if you want to participate. Okay. In your research for this book, Emerson Murray, what was the most surprising or totally unexpected thing you took out of all this research? And did you so express it in the book?
Yeah. So earlier, as I was talking about sort of the changes in people's stories as time progressed, and how stories.
So it wasn't just Kemper who's.
No, stories get snappier. Kemper's IQ goes up. It feels like 10 points every 10 years. The stories just got snappier. And when you go back to the primary source material, back to the newspapers of the day, and you interview the people that live through it, a different picture comes out in some very subtle ways, which impact a lot. So, we could take Kemper as an example. As his stories changed from when he's first caught, then when has the insanity defense and all this, and what is interesting to me is I studied history. That was my minor at San Jose State, and we learned about the story of Pocahontas and how Pocahontas had come to, she really.
It's not Elizabeth Warren.
No.
Yeah, okay. You're talking about the real Pocahontas.
Yeah, and so, in the late 1600s, when she had gone to England with a man named John Rolfe, who had brought tobacco as an industry to America, or to the New World at that time. Well, there was an old man who was an explorer that had been, and that's John Smith. And John Smith started saying, oh, yeah, she's the one that saved me and all this stuff. Well, the name Pocahontas hadn't come up until that. But the story of Pocahontas that we all know has value. It has value as a story. Legends and myths, they pass along morals and things like that. So one thing that I've been wrestling with recently is this idea of story versus absolute truth. And if you write a book where it's absolute truth and it's not interesting, then that history is going to be forgotten over time because nobody cares. And so there is some value to adding those snappy elements to stories. And so that's why when I decided to do it as a book of quotes, I included both. So you can hear how the story changes over time, and you need to figure out, because really, Kemper and his victims, they were the only ones in those rooms, in that car, wherever those crimes occurred. They were the only ones that were there. They're the only ones that know. Sure, we may have some after the fact CSI information that's brought forward, but they're the only ones that really know. And so if that story changes, for me, it's interesting to track that as history goes on. So that was sort of a rambling
Craig in Campbell has, guess what?
What's that?
A question.
Oh.
You want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Let's get him on the phone, on the line here. Craig in Campbell, our good friend Craig. How are you, Craig? And welcome to KSCO. Yeah. Welcome back to KSCO.
Thank you.
Hi. So are you fascinated by this interview as I am?
Yeah, I have for some weird reason, I've always had a fascination with evil. I guess, your author does too. I don't want to put myself out there by myself to sound that weird, but yeah, I was around back then, and I remember, I was a kid, but I remember it. It was what was going on, and I had my question. Then I have something else to say. Was that did these guys know each other, Kemper, Mullen, Fraser, and was there like a strange macabre, maybe after a while, macabre competition between them? Any evidence of that? To go out and kill. And something else, this former L.A. County Sheriff's Deputy Jesse Romero, he tells the story, he worked that jail when Richard Ramirez and all these other serial killers, he worked that part of the jail where these guys were at. And he said that Richard Ramirez, after he was convicted and everything, and, couldn't lose anything else, he told everybody at that jail that, I killed 40 people. You'll never find the bodies. That's after he was convicted, lifelong in prison and all that. So, I mean, these guys may have killed a lot of other people that they never found. I was wondering what the author thought about that. And then I have something else, but I want to hear him respond to my things.
Yeah, so that's a great question about whether they knew each other. It's a small community, right? And I discovered a couple of things that that surprised me. So that Frazier actually had a campsite right, I would say 100 yards from where Mullen killed his first victim. So there's a lot of little geographical situations like that. Whether the killers knew each other, I would say no. But one interesting thing that we found was that Kemper's sister worked at the Drug Preventive Center, or the Drug Abuse Preventive Center.
DAPC. Is that with Reverend Gene Dawson?
You got it, Reverend Gene Dawson.
On Commercial Way?
Yep. So I don't know where it was at that time, but Kemper, it's in the book, but I can't remember. But Kemper's sister worked there at the same time that Mullen went and lived there for a few weeks. So she had recollections of Mullen. So that was very surprising to me, but that was really one of the only real solid connections of knowing each other that I could find. And whether they were sort of in competition, John Linley Frazier was 1970, and he was apprehended only a couple of days after committing that horrible crime. Kemper and Mullen, on the other hand, Mullen, I think, had no awareness pretty much of anything that was going on. I mean, he was just out there worried about California sliding off into the ocean. But that being said, after he was arrested, I found an archive of information that had some of the materials, photographs of some of the materials found in his apartment after he was arrested. And on 2 different pieces of paper, one of them being a flyer for like a local play, he had written, "I am the hitchhike killer." And of course, that's in reference to Kemper. So he knew something was, there's something going on. I mean, he had some awareness of Kemper's crimes. Kemper, on the other hand, was very well aware of Mullen's crimes. And obviously, he didn't know Herbert Mullen or anything like that, but he had committed his first 3 crimes, murders, outside the area. And he told, after he was arrested, he told law enforcement that he had these certain rules that he lived by for his crime. He was like a hunter. And once he realized that somebody was killing in Santa Cruz, he thought, oh, I'm just being overly cautious. And that's when Kemper started killing in Santa Cruz, because he realized, I don't need to, go to Berkeley to commit these crimes. So there was awareness on his part. And then what was the second part of the question? Oh, after they were in prison. So,
well, if they,
yeah, okay. So
if these guys, in fact, they killed other people, which is a great possibility. That never unsolved murders. What do you think about that?
I think with Herbert Mullen, probably not. Edmund Kemper has always sort of alluded. He alluded directly to law enforcement after he was caught, and he has sort of given, I don't want to say snarky, but remarks about that. So that's a possibility. He said that he picked up hundreds of hitchhikers and dropped them off safely as trial runs to his project before he even started killing. And John Linley Frazier, like I said, he had only killed, the Oda family, members of the Oda family, and Dorothy Cadwallader. But he had, there's some confusion about whether he had committed a murder or thought he had committed a murder when he was a younger man. He had told his wife that he had committed this murder, and I think there's evidence that that it wasn't actually a murder, and but whether he thought he had killed the gentleman, I don't know. But so I don't think there's like a great number, but there is a possibility that I think that Kemper may have killed others. That's pure speculation, though. I haven't found any evidence that way. It's just comments made by Kemper.
Yeah, and also a couple more quick things. Like that Richard Ramirez, he was a hardcore Satanist.
Yeah.
We know that, and I'm wondering if these guys, there was anything about that. I mean, there had to have been something like that with these guys. And also one last thing. There's like this great German-made movie with Peter Lorre that you might want to check out if you haven't. That called N, this old German film where he's a child serial killer.
Yeah.
And it's like 1930s or something. But anyhow, I'll throw that out to you. I don't know if you've seen that movie or not.
Yeah,
but,
it's a great movie. He's a whistle. He whistles a certain tune. Yeah, and it's pretty shocking. You can hear him coming before he strikes. Yeah, and Peter Lorre, just the way he looks.
Yeah.
All right, Craig. Thanks for calling.
Peter, that was his first. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for calling 479-1080. That was Craig in Campbell,
Craig.
California. Before we go to Wendell in Reno, I want to talk about. Well, is it true? Aaron Wayne wants to know. Is it true that the guards at the kiosk would just wave Ed Kemper through because they knew him and would be in his mom's car with the UCSC sticker?
Well, in the beginning, yeah, he was in his mother's car, but like I said earlier, his mother got him a parking pass, a sticker, and you can see a picture in the book of his car with that sticker on it. And so the guards, I don't know that they knew Kemper, but they certainly saw that sticker. He would go up there in the evenings, and for any locals, you may remember that UCSC used to be a closed campus in the evening. So you were required to have a sticker to go on campus, and he had that sticker. They just waved him through. And in the book, you'll hear interviews where or you'll read interviews where he talks about that, and he talks about having bodies in the car, and they just wave him through, and he looks at their faces just to see if there's any recognition or if there's any suspicion or anything, and he was just like a hunter, you know. He had his special clothes.
What did he do with did he dispose of the bodies on campus?
No, he did not dispose them on campus. In that case, that was Alice Liu and Rosalind Thorpe. He had shot them up on campus. And ironically and sickly enough, if you ever see the preview, it's on YouTube, I'm sure, for the movie Us. I don't know if you've seen that movie, you heard it, but in the preview that was shot in Santa Cruz, there's the family is on their way to the beach, and they are listening to this song, "I've Got Five" on it, and they're driving by this certain spot, and locals will know. They're driving on UCSC, and then suddenly they appear at Twin Lakes Beach. But in the movie, editing-wise, it makes sense. But it's right there in that straightaway, all the way on, I think it's the western side of the campus. The family's driving, and that's exactly the spot where Kemper shot those two co-eds in his car. He drove off campus through security and went up the coast to Laguna. That's the road up before Davenport. And right before the road that goes off to Bonnie Doon, there's a pullout there, and that's where he shot them, finished the job and moved them from the car into the trunk of his car, and then he took them home and did horrible things. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I believe we have the last part of this email. I think you already said the house on Western Drive where Mullen murdered Kathy, is that still there? I think you said yes. Yeah.
The one on Western Drive, that's where he killed the Gennaro family, and
okay.
Yeah, that's still there. I don't want to give out the address or anything, but where Kathy Francis was killed it's a gated community up past the mystery spot, so you can't get up there. And I doubt if that house is there, because if in the crime scene pictures, it's it's really a beat-up cabin, and if there's anything there, I'm sure they must have rebuilt it in the past 50 years.
Okay. And we do have, I think, another email to read while I'm on emails. Maybe a couple here. From Richard. MZ, Mullen's first murder. It's Mullen, right?
Mullen,
it's not Mullins.
Yeah, Mullen.
Yeah, so Mullen, 'S, first murder victim, was a priest in a confessional in Los Gatos. Can you ask Emerson what he knows about Mullen's relationship with Father Tomei or Tomei?
Tomei, yeah. Okay. So that was actually his third murder, but it was the first that was acknowledged. People didn't know that he had killed Lawrence White and Mary Guilfoyle before that, when he hit trial, when the trial started. It was announced early in the trial that he had committed those two murders as well. Lawrence White was killed along Highway 9, right down the street from Mullen's parents' home. Mary Guilfoyle was killed out by Cabrillo College. So Father Tomei was killed right outside his confessional in Los Gatos. And what was the question? Sorry.
Well, what led him to be in the confessional?
Yeah, that's a great question. He actually was going on his way to San Francisco, or he had gone to San Francisco to pay off some kind of premium on his life insurance. And on the way back, he had drank a little beer and whiskey or something. And he went into that church to, as he says, this is all from him, to sort of cleanse himself and say, I really don't want to kill anymore. You know, I don't want to be this chosen one that's killing to save California. I don't want to do it. He gets in there, and there's nobody in the church, but he can see the light on in the confessional. So he goes and knocks on the confessional door on the priest side, and no answer. So he turns to leave. Well, just as he's turning to leave, Father Tomei steps out of the confessional, and Mullen immediately attacks him with a knife. Now, what the emailer may be alluding to is Mullen still to this day believes that he knew Father Tomei, that Father Tomei had come to Felton, where Mullen lived, and been a guest preacher. I'm not sure what the word is, but been a guest priest at his church. That the records don't indicate that at all. There were records that there were a Father Tomei that taught at Reardon High School in San Francisco that Mullen had gone to, but it was a different Tomei that did that. It was not the same that I could find anyway.
Here's another email. In the subject, it says, Mullen used to frequent Piggy Market when it was on the frontage road next to the Kingdom Come Bar and adjacent to the Gourgi, Gourgi. I'm not sure how to even say that. Saw him there several times around Aptos. Larry Henderson writes, there was Adlai, another murderer. You know who that he's talking about?
No, and I know that Mullen worked at a gas station in Aptos, so that doesn't surprise me that he frequented, because he lived in Felton with his parents, and then when he lived in Santa Cruz, I can't remember what those apartments are called. They're sort of like little bungalows up at the top by that psycho Hitchcock-looking house that used to be there.
Oh.
Down by the boardwalk. I can't remember. They're all brick.
That's down by the boardwalk. That was the inspiration for
Yeah. I remember growing up hearing that.
Yeah.
Well, right by there, there's
Hotel McRae is what it's called.
It's
now it's a memory care
it's like
facility.
A okay.
So,
right across the street, there's these brick things. It's in the book, Pacific something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mullen lived there for a short time. And that's when he was caught. That's where he lived. But he did work out at Aptos at a gas station for a long time.
The emailer, Larry Henderson, says his girlfriend at the time was friends with Tracy Oda. So was up above...
with Tara. He probably means Tara Oda. Yeah, that's the older sister.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Was up above Soquel and working on power lines when Frazier worked at the hippie candle factory. You know about that?
I don't know about the hippie candle factory. Right. No, that's interesting. Yeah.
All righty. We're with Emerson Murray, the author of Murder Capital of the World. You can call us at 479-1080 if you have a question or a comment, or you can email mz@ksco.com. 30 minutes left to the program. Let's go back to the phone lines here. Wendell in Reno, you're on the air, Wendell.
Hi, Michael. I was hesitant to call up. This is a really grotesque program today.
We're sorry.
It brings memories back because I was one of the two security guards that worked up at UCSC when all this was taking place.
Wow.
And I have some insight on a couple of things that may or may not be of interest. We did waive a station wagon that was owned by his mother, Kim, and it did have a sticker. That is true. And what we were told, what the sergeant we had a briefing every day before we started at night. And there was another security guard, Rigo, And he and I were the only two up there at night. And he had the east side and I had the west side. And what happened was we were told that if he had a sticker on the vehicle, don't stop him, don't bother him. And so he had free access to the campus because his mom's station wagon, she worked up there, and she had the sticker. So we probably did wave him through, unbeknownst that he was the guy.
Yeah.
And all the hitchhiking stories are true that you mentioned. And one of the interesting things about how it affected my life was the sergeant hooked us up with a detective. I think they had 3 detectives working at the university at that time. And they worked there prior to all these incidents. But the one detective, he took us down to the warehouse on Commercial off Highway 9 or River Street. And we went into the warehouse, and it was really creepy. They had the station wagon in there. And he told us all the information that we asked because we worked for campus police, and he wanted us to know everything that they knew at that time concerning this whole situation. So we got a lot of insight about the gruesomeness of the murders. They went into a lot of detail, the detective, and it was just horrendous. But the other thing I wanted to mention is this story about how we were the murder capital of the world. The police at the campus used to kind of laugh that off because they said it was a real falsehood.
What would you say, Wendell?
Yeah, what was that last part?
The talk amongst the campus police at the university was that the label "murder capital of the world" was not accurate.
Yeah,
yeah. They said there was other places where there were far higher rate of murders, and that was kind of a fictional thing that somebody made up for whatever reason, and there wasn't real truth to back it up.
No, I would agree with that. Yeah, it was. I would say only for a very short period of time. You know, those 18 months perhaps where there were 25 murders, that we may have even had a claim to that title, that dubious title. Yeah, but it's not a real.
Yeah.
It was the San Francisco Examiner report. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was close, but we still were not number one. The last thing I wanted to mention is the people up at the campus, the students, did a lot of hitchhiking. Mm-hmm. And because a lot of the kids didn't have cars, and they would like to get off campus because they were living in the dorms. They'd go down to, Santa Cruz for fun and games and whatever. So it was the main way that they got around because they didn't like waiting for the buses. Yeah. And also the buses stopped running after a certain hour. So they used to hitchhike right where I was at above Stevenson College. And I used to tell them, I used to talk to a lot of the students that were out there hitchhiking, and I told them not to do it. I said, you're putting your life at risk. And they all laughed it off. And one of the girls I'll never forget, she said, I know all kinds of martial arts, and, I've studied self-defense and blah, blah, blah. And I told her, I said, well, that's okay. I'm glad you know all that, but you're still taking a big risk.
Yeah.
And one of the things the detective told us was that when people got into that station wagon, he had jimmy jamming the lock somehow so that you couldn't just open the door and jump out.
Yeah.
So it was like this little prison car. Once you got in there, you were basically his prisoner.
Yeah, that's right. He called it his kill car, and he would drop a chapstick or a broken off door handle in it. It had a lever to open the door from the inside, and he would drop it in. And Kemper was 6'9", so whether you know karate or not, you're in that tiny tight space with him. He's got a gun, he's got a knife, he's ready. He knows what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. So I think also people forget how prevalent hitchhiking was in the 70s. It's easy.
It really was a big way of getting around, yeah.
Right, in general. And everyone hitchhiked at the time. And I remember going to on-ramps. Every on-ramp, a freeway on-ramp, there'd be people there with their thumbs out and signs and things like that. So, yeah, people just forget that. They forget how prevalent it was.
I just want to ask you one last question.
Yeah.
What is your motivation for writing about this? Because it seems like one of the mistakes we're making in our society is we're giving these murderers and killers too much attention, and a lot of them really thrive on that.
Well, that was
what was your motivation for writing this book?
Well, for me, it was a part of my life, and it was a part of our community that we were just so scarred by this. That was one. The other was there are so many projects out there that are inaccurate, that are wrong, and they only go after the most lurid story. They don't attempt to tell the truth. They go after that. And the third was I'm also sick of these projects, these videos, shows, books that make killers into rock stars. I think it's disgusting. And for me, I wanted to tell the story of our community, and that's why the book is titled the way it is. I wanted to tell the story of the victims. You will find no other book that goes into their lives and as much as mine. And each chapter is about the victim and trying to tell their story as much as I could research it. So, yeah, I really fought hard against that lurid type of stuff. I don't shy away from the details because I think they're important, and people
part of history.
Yeah, can beat me up for that. That's fine. But I just think that this is an important part of history that really scarred our community, and you can still feel it in some aspects today. So.
Well, thank you for clarifying that, because that was one of the things I was wondering is, why was this necessary?
Yeah.
But you answered that very well.
Well, thank you very much, sir. And I would like to talk to you again sometime. Maybe if we could get your number or something.
I'll pass I'll pass it along with your permission, Wendell.
Yeah, Michael has all my information.
Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And Wendell, you're in Reno, not Tahoe anymore, right?
Yeah, I moved to Reno about 2 years ago. Tahoe's like Santa Cruz. If you're not well off financially, it's really hard to survive up there.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, thank you.
I was forced out just like Santa Cruz, not enough money.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks. Here's Steve in Marina who has a comment.
Yeah, the see no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil monkey trio.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That makes all of us murderers. We're like the citizens of the Roman arena watching the Christian get the sword or the lion kill him, and we applaud it on. And you've really got to appreciate our wretched state. And you have to visit LennonMurderTruth.com and see the new developments page, people. There's a rally coming up December 8th. You got to be there, or we're all just Lennon killing fools.
Yeah, because December 8th is like a month from now, right? We're pretty close.
Wednesday, downtown Monterey, noon.
Okay. All righty, Steve. Take care. We'll talk to you.
Thank you.
Here is Madge in Santa Cruz regarding FBI profile. FBI profile.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the profilers. I've watched several TV shows. Netflix did one on the profiler, the starting of the profiler program with the FBI, and then there's various crime podcasts on serial murderers that I've listened to recently that talk about these murders. And I wanted to know your guest author's opinion on the depiction of these murderers in these various movies, TV, podcasts, and all the rest. I'm sure he's listened to them very closely. Secondly, I visited Santa Cruz during that time, and I would scratch my head and go, who on earth would ever want to live in this town that's the murder capital of the world?
Yeah.
And years later, I find myself here and about 5 minutes away by foot from the last murder of that happened on the west side here, which I didn't know about until about 2 years ago when the newspaper wrote something about it. So anyway, I'd like to know his opinion of that.
Yeah, so Mindhunter is probably the show that you're thinking of on Netflix, and that is sort of a fictionalized account of the FBI's behavioral science program that was started by John Douglas and Robert Ressler. Those are their real names. They were FBI agents that started interviewing serial killers as a way to prevent and a way to catch future serial killers by sort of, to know the artist, you have to learn about the art. It's sort of what John Douglas has said in the past. So I felt like the Mindhunter, especially the depiction of Edmund Kemper in Mindhunter, was fascinating. I thought he did a very good job. I mean, there are some YouTube videos where you can see side by side. Cameron Britton is the name of the actor that portrays Ed Kemper, versus the real Ed Kemper. It's pretty amazing to see. The reason they went and talked to Ed Kemper, he was the first person that they went and to talk to sort of start this program. And the reason being is because he was very open, one of the only killers at that time that was open to talking about what he had done and specifically why and how and his feelings leading up to the crimes. So that they gleaned a lot of insight from him, as well as some street cred to where they could go to other killers and say, oh, we talked to Ed Kemper. So John Douglas was that man. And just as an FYI, Fox Nation, which is the streaming service for Fox, they just came out on November 1st with a show about John Douglas, sort of talking about his true life interviews. It's like the real Mindhunter, but it's called like The Killer Next Door or something. And the pilot episode, or the first episode, is about Edmund Kemper, and I'm interviewed in that. I was very honored that they asked. Jim Jackson is interviewed in that. I haven't seen it yet. Hopefully I'll be seeing it this weekend. But yeah, so if you're still interested in that stuff, and that's actually John Douglas going through some of the crimes, some of the killers that he talked to and their crimes.
Yeah. Hey, thanks a lot for that commentary. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you for calling.
Yeah, thanks, Madge. We have lines open at 479-1080. You can always email mz@ksco.com. Let's see if there's anybody in the... Nope. We have... okay. There's just no... I love thumbing through this book.
You're going to know everyone in there, I think. I mean, you're going to know so many people in there. And like I said, you can get it at Bookshop Santa Cruz, Two Birds Books in Capitola, or Postal Annex in Scotts Valley, murdercapitaloftheworld.com. And we'll ship them out to you. Me and my kids package them up.
You have a profile of every person that was murdered?
Yes, sir. Yeah. Some of the victims, I had less information. They were young. They were very young, and they didn't, unfortunately, have long, full lives. So some of the stories are very short. But it's going out to some of the victims' families, that was a very mixed bag. Some of them were outraged that I even called them or even tried to contact them.
Outraged? Really?
Yeah, like they just didn't want to talk about it, and how dare I. And others were, in some cases, they were happy and excited. Mary Guilfoyle's family, nobody had ever talked to them about Mary Guilfoyle, and she was interesting. She was born in New York City. She was born in a taxi cab in New York. She had open heart surgery when she was 6 or 7 years old, one of the youngest people at that time. She was Mullen's second victim. She came out to Cabrillo College she graduated from high school a year early because she was so smart, and then went to college a little bit in New York, and then came out to Santa Cruz. Nobody who's alive can remember exactly why she came out to Santa Cruz, but she did, and she went to Cabrillo College. And one day, Mullen was driving by Cabrillo College, and he saw a white Cadillac parked out in front of the college, and he knew that Cadillac belonged to a man named Ray Liebenberg. And Ray Liebenberg was sort of a local character in the San Lorenzo Valley. He was like an arborist or a tree person, and not a logger, but he worked in trees, but he was also like a masseuse. And he had run for county supervisor and lost his race. Well, And I remember Ray Liebenberg. I never met him, but we would see his as kids. I remember that this white Cadillac driving down Highway 9, and my parents would say, "There's Ray Liebenberg," and me and my brother would say, "There's Ray Liebenberg," and he had this long white beard that would go out the window and flap, and it was just somebody that we would see in the valley, a valley character. Well, Mullen sees Ray Liebenberg's car on the side of the road, and he hears Ray Liebenberg's voice in his head, and it says, Herb, you're going to need to kill someone for me. And Herb said, well, yes, sir. So the next day he's driving in front of Cabrillo again, but the Cadillac's not there. There's a young lady with her thumb out hitchhiking, and that was Mary Guilfoyle. And as soon as she got in the car, Mullen killed her. And he said that he knew she wanted to be a sacrifice because after he had stabbed her, she put her body down onto the floor of the car so that she wouldn't get any blood on his seats and so that nobody would see her. So that was a signal to him that he knew in his sick mind that she wanted to be a human sacrifice for him. Well, when I talked to Mary Guilfoyle's family, I talked to her sister-in-law, it would have been her brother's wife. She said that nobody had ever communicated with their family. They had seen documentaries and books about Herbert Mullen, but no one had reached out to them to learn anything about Mary.
They were happy instead of outraged.
Yeah, and they thanked me. So for me, that's the best part of the book, is that we can tell these stories that have never been told before about who the victims were.
Of the people who were outraged, how dare you call them?
Yeah.
Did they just hang up, or were you able to soften them up? And
some of them I got through to. In the cases of the victims' families, I usually started off with a letter. I thought that would be soft. It feels less like an ambush than a phone call. Professional, if you're professionally involved, I felt comfortable calling, part of an attorney or law enforcement. I felt more comfortable calling. But for victims' families, I tried to write or write emails or whatever, just to let them know about the project and what my goals were for the project. Some of them did, warm up to me and did come around. And I just feel, blessed is not the right word, but just very thankful that people in the community and these families did open up. And when you read the book, there's just a lot. We have a lot of information in there about who these people were that was not there before.
Wow.
I'm proud of that. That's what I'm most proud about.
As you should be, yeah. Okay, we're in the final 10 minutes of the interview of the Saturday special today of Emerson Murray, the author of Murder, Capital of the World. We have quite a number of callers here, so
maybe we can blaze.
Let's take the next one, which would be Randall in Pacific Grove. Randall, you're on KSCO with Emerson and MZ.
Hello. I got an area of the country that beats Santa Cruz for the murder capital. In Ohio, there's an area called the Chilliwaukee Valley or Chilliwaukee County. It's outside of Warren, Ohio. And since the 70s, they found women just on the side of the ditch, on the side of the road, murdered. No clues, apparently. There tend to be prostitutes, women of low income, often people of color. And, even currently, they're finding women all over the place. So the murder rate, the number of murderers is pretty high. I don't think it's one serial killer doing these murders. I had a girlfriend for quite a while who was from Warren, Ohio, and that's a bad area. But they're finding these women just thrown off the side of the road, raped and murdered all over the place in that area. Now, I might have the pronunciation wrong. I think it's Chilliwaukee or Chilliwaukee County, and it's outside of Warren, Ohio. And it's like this stuff isn't talked about very much.
Yeah.
This area.
Well, you're nodding your head. It sounds like you might have heard of it.
No, I have not heard of this one, but yeah, it doesn't get talked about a lot. I think, there's subgroups, that you can find online that are really interested in trying to track these types of things. But I think overall in the media and it's just, it isn't.
Okay.
Well, I remember in the late 70s. I was hitchhiking on Highway 9. I know this is quite a while later after this case, but I remember when I was on Highway 9, I just didn't want to be on that highway. And there was an area that goes down into like a valley where there's like these
a river,
real tall, thin redwood trees, and they're like young, but they're tall redwood trees. And there's a look to that hollow there that is just like death.
Yeah,
it's like it's the scariest area I've ever seen in my life. And I didn't even follow this co-ed killer case, but I just, without even knowing about this much, because I was up in the Bay Area when the Zodiac was going on. But I'm telling you, I got this really panicky feeling like I don't want to be on this highway. It's that one area. I don't know if it's Big Basin, but there's like a dark forested area that looks totally different than the other areas.
It may be River Road, between Felton and Santa Cruz,
Okay.
Remember Ken Kesey used to live there.
Yep.
Wow.
Ken Kesey. Yeah, okay.
All right, Randall, thank you. Here's Sue in Santa Cruz. Sue, you're on KSCO with Emerson and MZ.
Hey, good morning, everyone. What a very hard subject this is. I just wanted to know, has anybody done any reading on the Cameron Hooker up in Corning near Reading in about 1984? So he happened to be, my father was a farmer up there, and he happened to be a neighbor. So if you haven't done any reading on Cameron Hooker, you can get the book. Does anybody know of his name?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with his name. No, I will look it up, though. Thank you.
Please do, because it looks like you have so much information there. I think you'll be really surprised about the story about him, that he kept women at the house, under the house for years and years, and did the same thing, picked up some hitchhikers, whatever. Well, so the whole neighborhood of all these wonderful farmers up there, they were just blown away that was all going on in their neighborhood for years.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for calling.
Finally, his wife said, okay, I'll give the information out, because then you won't hold me against this as bad as many years as I'm going to get. I think he got like 98 years, and he was probably 35 or 40 then.
Wow.
Okay, thank you, Sue in Santa Cruz. Here's Susan in Troy, Idaho. Susan, welcome to the KSCO Saturday Special with Emerson and MZ.
Thank you, MZ. Fascinating topic. Anyway, I moved to Santa Cruz in 1991.
Okay.
And we bought a house in Forest Lakes and lived there for 20 years.
Right off of Highway 9.
Yep. And this kind of brings back memories to me, because I was 18 when all these murders were going on, and I avoided Santa Cruz for many years, and I was kind of leery about moving there. But anyway, we were in our house, and there were these people behind our house. We owned about 2 acres. And there was a cop and these 2 women, and they were on the egress behind our house. And they were looking for a body. And apparently, these 2 women, they had their sister or cousin was killed. And so the cop was there, and they were digging and digging, and I was freaking out. Are you kidding me? And this really brought back a lot of memories. But they didn't find any bodies, thank goodness, or that body. But I just wanted to contribute that to the conversation.
That was in 1991, you said?
Well,
or
no,
roughly?
this actually, when they actually came up, we bought the house in 1994, but in 2010, this is when the incident occurred.
Wow.
So, this is very fresh in my memory. Yeah. And, of course, I used to hitchhike, too, as a young woman, but always with somebody.
Right.
But never in the Santa Cruz Mountains.
Right.
Right. So anyway, that's my story.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing it, Susan, on what is hopefully your favorite radio station, even from Troy, Idaho.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Have a good one. All right. Here's Benny in Soquel. Hi, Benny. You're on KSCO.
Yeah, I just wanted to. Yeah, I've lived here a long time, and I wanted to add that I was a witness at the Frazier trial because I heard some of the shots that were used to kill the Oda family. And the interesting thing about the Frazier trial was that he kept his back to the judge in the court at all times during the trial. He wouldn't face the judge.
Yeah, I have some pictures of that in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah, his wife was in the audience too. My understanding is he would signal his wife in the audience and then, of course, when the insanity phase of the trial started, he came in with half of his head shaved. That's sort of what people outside the area remember, because they see that one picture when you Google his name, and he's half a beard and half his head bald.
Yeah.
You know, in an attempt to prove something, to show how crazy he was, I guess.
Yeah. My kids at the time, there was no school buses. We live out in the country behind SoCal.
Yeah.
And Dr. Oda used to give my kids a ride to school partway in his Rolls Royce.
Wow. Yeah.
They remember walking up and down the road, and he'd stop and pick them up and drop them off near school. So we saw from our house, we saw the Oda house burning later.
Oh, the smoke. Yeah. Wow.
Hey, we're getting close to the end. Benny, thank you for your call to
Thank
KSCO. Our last caller today will be Mike on Highway 1 with a story. I hope you can do it in less than a minute, Mike.
Half a minute.
Okay.
So I was going to school up in Chico, and I was working for the Agricultural Trade Association. That's my story. But there were, at the same time, there were a number of field workers that started to disappear. They were being murdered. And as it turns out, it was a labor contractor. Went on for months, and the people were just disappearing. It turned out it was a labor contractor up there. And it made quite a story around the country. The locals up there kind of a funny story about it. And they say, what's this actor sitting on bicycle?
Well, Mike, I hate it. I hate to do this, but I can't. Did you get any of that?
I got a little bit.
I got about 1% of it.
You're breaking up pretty bad.
The connection is very, very bad, Mike.
I think you're talking about the Juan Corona case, and he killed a great many farm workers.
Yeah. But anyhow, thank you, Mike, for calling. We're at the end of the show. There's only like 30 seconds left. How did it go? How did 2 hours go by that fast? All the best success to you.
Yeah,
It looks like there's going to be a second printing. Boy, there should. I think.
hope so. We got 300 copies left. You got to go to Bookshop Santa Cruz, Two Birds in Capitola, or Postal Annex in Scotts Valley, or murdercapitaloftheworld.com to pick up the book.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's it, folks. See you next week.